vacation, visiting with friends in Wyoming. They live on the edge of Yellowstone National Park. They've decided to go to the grocery store. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and they've left you there alone. You hear a strange noise in the kitchen. You get up to investigate what that could possibly be, and as you round the corner from the hallway, you find yourself eyeball to eyeball with a grizzly bear. Fear sets in. You're wondering, do I cut and run right now real fast, or do I just stand here and hope he doesn't care? Anxiety has frozen you. That's what it's like for some parents who have anxiety over this whole parenting process, year-on-year ordeal, or so they think. What kinds of issues and anxiety plague you? I'm Rowena Starling, welcoming you to the Save Your Breath show, where we help parents eliminate the stress and aggravation of parenting, whether their child is 5 or 50. Well, really deep inside of what's going on with parents is that they think if they would just be friends with their child, then they would have, they feel better, they'd have more peace, they'd be happier. This is the idea. But it's really deeper than that. If they would just realize that the child comes here with ego, and in this ego, they're in the process of exercising the power that they have with that. If they would just realize that, they would accept the help that they need. There is the anxiety of being the disciplinarian versus the authority, versus your child's friend, the authority figure versus your child's friend, and I see far, far too much of this. I call it namby-pamby, but there's far too many things being let slip through the wayside. And what we're talking about on the show here today is the effect that anxiety has on us keeping our integrity in our parenting process. Now, as far as your child being your friend, now you know what a friend is. Do you know what a friend is? A friend is someone who knows you and is fond of you. They're your ally. They sympathize with you. They support you. Now, once your child becomes an adult, maybe there's a friendship that can happen there, right? But there is no way that your child is going to be your friend while they are growing up. They simply don't know you well enough. What are they learning about you? Well, if you're letting them get away with any and everything, what they're learning about you, remember, they come here with ego. What they're learning about you is that you're a pushover. And you're off to the races with always pushing back with them against what they want. Guess who wins if you're busy trying to be their friend? Have you ever seen someone out in public with a tyrannical child? It's not very pretty. Where do they get the authority to behave like that in public? I believe it starts at home. For instance, I have a client. Actually, it's a mother and father, and they have 2 teenage daughters. Here's a case in point where it's one of those gentle situations, kind of flowing. The father works, he travels in his work, so he's away from home a lot, maybe weeks at a time. And so the mother is the one that ends up doing most of the parenting and the shuttling around and going to the games and whatnot with the girls. And she's a sweet woman. So what happens is the girls know that about they're teenagers now, so they've learned how to maneuver their situation. Case in point, in this one little instance I wanted to share with you about this, is the girls had a tendency to make dates, plans for their social calendar with meeting their friends and going to various events for the school, or, without consulting her, her calendar, her schedule, to see if she could even take them there. So we had two problems. First of all, they were scheduling a whole bunch of stuff that they were going to be doing without consulting whether they could do them or not. And not only that, when it was time to do it, they were telling her that she had to take them to wherever it was they were going. Now, the mother was, like I said, she was a very sweet woman. So she was the one whining about it, and she'd take them. This went on for years. She'd fuss at them, she'd take them, and she'd complain, and it would happen again. It happened all the time. And this is something that she really hated about her parenting of these teenage girls. So one day I said to her, if you would just not take them when they do that, if you would explain that they needed to have respect for your time and your schedule, just going to pop up and have you take them somewhere on the dime, then that would stop. And she said, oh no, a lot of times it's something important, and then, they would be very upset with me. I mean, it would be just, I said, well, this is the point. This is where the rubber meets the road. And this is where you really get to have fun. It's their date, not yours, right? And if they're to respect your time, you need to put your foot down for yourself for your time. So my advice to her was that the next time this happens, to tell them, no, I'm not going. I had no idea that you had this plan, and I have other things to do, namely sitting here and painting my fingernails. Well, I assured her that she would only have to do that once, maybe twice, before they would start consulting her about whether they could take her to whatever it was. In fact, I think the thing that really broke it was there was a cheerleading practice for a tournament of some sort where the high schools compete in a cheerleading, whatever it is, and the team had decided to rehearse. It was getting down to the wire, and she said, no, I'm not taking you. Oh boy, that was exciting. However, they consult her now before they make plans to see if her schedule will match their opportunity for a ride. You see, this is just sort of how these things evolve over time when you're not paying attention and suddenly you're being weighted down and you can't figure out what happened. I have a family system that helps parents with this and many other aspects of what goes on in the family dynamic. And the reason that we're talking about anxiety is because anxiety is a silent killer. It is killing people just ever so gently as they move through time, or maybe not so gently. So what is anxiety? It is the worry and uneasiness over what may happen, right? It's our mind riding us, our heart being squeezed, anxiety. Why bring a child into this world? That's another one of those big worries, especially before you actually have a child. People question that whole idea. The hand-wringing involved with of the life sentence that you're making on this poor, unborn child or the child that you just had. I mean, this is something that especially mothers have problems with, because it just seems so much like a squeeze to the heart. You cannot look at the news without it talking about the violence of man on his fellow man, and Mother Nature, the violence of Mother Nature that causes freak accidents, and in freak accidents that just happen anyway. I personally had an issue with why would we bring someone into this world? Do you worry about the money that it takes to raise a family and bring a child up and maybe have something left for yourself in retirement when you're done? This is one of the big three of parental worries. I mean, it's so deep and heavy for people that they many times end up in divorce. I mean, it looks like it was about money many times, but the anxiety of it starts somewhere else. Starts somewhere deep inside of you that is causing these problems that look like they're money problems with the world. Not so. I want you to let me help you with these hurdles. It starts with losing the fear and anxiety, just losing it, that's holding you back, that's eating you in the background. We are heroes. And as heroes, we use tools to fight our enemies, effective tools. The enemy in this case is anxiety and fear. I have the tools. Do you worry about being smart enough to guide a child, a human being, to adulthood? That's a long time. That's like 0 to 18 years. Worrying in a vacuum. I used to just worry with no research. At that time, I think we didn't have computers and all that stuff, so I didn't really do a whole bunch of research. I was just worrying like a lot of young parents do these days. And yes, especially women, when they're considering whether they want to go through with having a child or not. The hormones are pressing the issue, but then the mind comes in and says, are you crazy? Look at this world that you're putting them in. Think of the money. It takes $250,000 to raise a child from 0 to 18, and that doesn't include the college education. Are you winging it? Are you parenting by default? Doing what your parents did? Are you passing what your parents did to you on to what is happening with your child? Are you considering what your parents did with you and going totally in the opposite direction, which really is not serving the child, especially if you're like, quote unquote, spoiling them? I, for one, thought that I would be wise at the time and I would wait. This was part of my wisdom speech to myself. Wait until you're older and you have more wisdom and you learn more about life. I think I was probably thinking of this when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. So I waited, and I waited. And then the biological clock clicked in, and Mother Nature said, time's up. So I went forth and multiplied. See, the problem with that whole plan was I had not done the work to free myself of my own internal insecurities and old heartaches that were holding me back. You see, so all of that waiting was kind of good. I did pick up some wisdom, but I didn't pick up the core things that allowed me to have the patience at that time that I needed to do a thorough and loving job. Do you worry about being the perfect parent? Let me help you with this. There is no such thing. We are all perfect in our imperfections. That's how perfect we are. Everything that's going wrong, all of that is perfect. Perfect parenting simply does not exist. Being perfect Well, let's say it this way. We are being perfected by the lessons our children are teaching us. Lessons children teach us galvanize us into a stronger, more joyful existence and ever deeper understanding of love. So if you're thinking about the perfection, that is the perfection. And if you are making the moves that are necessary right now that are necessary for you to cleanse and fix and get rid of the things that are holding you back and robbing your joy, then you're perfect just in doing that. So why must we address anxiety? Anxiety is a significant health issue. It's a silent killer. It presses stress into your very cells and is a very close relative of depression. And not least of all, we can pass anxiety and stress onto our children. Is that what you want to do? Is that what you're doing? Are you paying attention enough to consider it and find out? See, the thing that I want you to understand is that we are not separate. Just because it appears that we're walking around here in these bodies, our skin is not really separating us. There's the constant ebb and flow of communication happening. It's part of that 93% of nonverbal communication that I personally love to talk about. I don't think that's talked about often enough. I call it the communicable disease. Communications communicable disease, this anxiety, stress, and all of those nasty factors. So it's necessary that we address it so that we can build protection from the inside, protection from the anxiety and the stress, and teach our children how to do it also. In doing this, we're able to limit the amount of this that we pass on to our children. The communicable dis-ease. Anxiety is dis-ease. Most stress and premature aging and death has to do with and is brought on by dis-ease, anxiety. So, how do you do that? How do we free ourselves, rid ourselves of anxiety? Well, remember, put the oxygen mask on you first. Do you remember why? Well, the quality of your attention is the quality of your parenting success, your parenting results. Listen with your whole body. It gets hectic. You know that. The background noise, the distractions, being pulled from all sides from work and friends, and heaven forbid you should get some time in for yourself. And all of that noise going on in our heads, it's easy to miss the cues that would tell us what's going on in the heart and mind of our child. And how do you tell which buttons, how do you tell, what is going on with you, causing you to have this anxiety? Pay attention to the buttons that are being pushed that cause you to fly off the handle, or that give you that sick feeling in your stomach that, tightness in your chest. Hopefully you're not having a heart attack. Recognize the thing before it becomes a full-blown blow up or a full-blown, squeeze on your being, and stop in the moment. Stop in the moment and breathe. Oh, it's such a beautiful thing. We need to do a lot more of that, just stopping in the moment when you can feel things are off. It's important that you keep your balance. Balance. You can feel when you're physically off balance, and you can feel when you're emotionally off balance, right? Balance feels good. It gives and gets respect. It sounds like the calm whispers of a gentle breeze, the soft purr of a Jaguar engine, or the crack of thunder in a storm. It just depends on what's needed in the moment to restore balance. Leaning too far in either direction is a sign, it's your cue that you're off balance, it doesn't feel good, and to come back to center. Clients are often telling me about the issues that they have with money for this very same reason. They're never feeling in balance. Oh, definitely, just stop. Just stop. It's the power that we have to just stop and handle it on an energetic level. What are you going through right now? I submit to you that whatever it is that you're going through, it's exactly as you requested. That's the power that we have. You may have done it unconsciously, and of course, no one wants to take responsibility for creating a mess or attracting hardship, but that's exactly what we do all the time. Daily, moment to moment, it's insane. We do it unconsciously. Raising children is part of the circle of life. There's no point in being anxious about it or having anxiety over it. It's their world, as it is ours. They own it. We are all just the expansion of the great intelligence of the universe. And as bad as we think things are, ultimately, we're simply a stretch of cosmic imagination. Your creation of a legacy, taking the courage to do the right thing, to create what you want with your family, and finding a way to do it if it's not clear and easy for you to try to think of right now. This builds integrity in your child and in your family unit. Walk the talk. Parent by example. It's easier than you think. Would you like to remove the anxieties and stresses in your life in minutes? Just whack them off one by one in minutes rather than months and years? I can help you with that. If you have fears and anxieties over the future and money and the issue of being a loving parent that's effective in their disciplinary measures, if you have issues with that and you'd like to handle it in a more efficient way, contact me through the parenting assessment at SaveYourBreath101.com/parenting-assessment. do the assessment. It's a $250 value for free. While supplies last, anyway. You are born a hero. God says, well, actually, somebody said that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. I believe this is true. And not all people are called to be parents, as you know. And many parents are not picking up the mantle of being the hero to their children that they need to be. And our world suffers for it. The task at hand is to raise the next generation of heroes. Be the light on the path to infinite joy for your children, for your offspring. Give it to yourself first. It's more fun that way. It doesn't stop because your child is now an adult. This is a call to arms for the parents who treasure all that is holy and sacred, a call to arms against parenting by default, living in fear and anxiety, and generally feeling like crap. Even the grizzly in the kitchen senses unconditional love and will simply walk away. Well, I thank you for listening and watching today, and I look forward to your return.